Robin here from Cheese from Scratch. So today we're gonna make cheesecake. Oh, I'm so excited. I can't wait for you guys to see how to make cheesecake completely from scratch. Sort of. Like almost completely from scratch. You still need to buy graham crackers, but I mean, like, let's not get crazy. We don't want to like go super crazy. I'm here. This is a cheese channel. We're here for the cheese, and this is cheesecake. Like, why do we not have a cheesecake video here already? So I'm so excited to share this with you guys. And the best thing is that you get to learn 3 different skills while you make this cheesecake. 3 dairy skills. So let's get started and eat some cake. All right, so I started the quest to make the perfect cheesecake probably about, I don't know, like a year ago. And I have been trying so many different cheesecakes with so many different cream cheese recipes, trying to make the perfect cheesecake. And I have finally found one that I love so much. And it actually doesn't use cream cheese. It uses something called quark. So quark is sort of like a cream cheese, but it's more heavy based on the milk. So what I do is I go down to milk in the morning and I bring up my milk from the barn, I clean it, and I take a gallon of that milk, still like not cream lined or anything like that. And oh, hi guys. Nice hat. We all have hats on today. Bad hair day. So I bring that milk up, I take a gallon of it, and I use that to make quark, and I make it right there. It's super quick to make, so I'm going to show you guys how to make that. Then I'm also going to show you how to make sour cream, because if you haven't already made sour cream, it's the easiest thing you will ever do, and you also need it for this recipe. And then finally, I'm going to teach you guys how to make butter, because you need that for the recipe too, and it's so easy too. So 3 really simple dairy recipes that are all going to come together to make the best cheesecake that you have ever tasted in your entire life. Okay, all right, let's get going. All right, first things first, I'm gonna drop something that you're gonna be like, oh no, this is too much. So this cheesecake takes at least 2 days to make, but it's not hands-on time. It's like a little bit of time, and in the end, it's probably gonna be like the quickest cheesecake you've ever made. You do just have to put a little bit of work in at the beginning. So on day 1, you are going to be making, hi guys. So on day 1, you're going to be making your quark and your sour cream. So I'm going to show you here in this little video on how to make your quark and how to make your sour cream, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about what to do with those. Okay, so Quark is such a great cheese. It's made from whole milk. So as I said, I milk in the morning, I bring up my milk, I clean it, and then I go ahead and put my milk in a gallon jar. And after I put it in the gallon jar, it's still nice and warm from the barn. As long as I didn't dawdle too much, it's still going to be nice and warm. So then I'm going to add my culture in there. And it doesn't need very much culture. I am using a Mesophilic culture here, and I only use about 1/8 of a teaspoon. I don't even have 1/8 of a teaspoon, so I just use like a little 1/4 teaspoon one and use like half of it. And so what you want to do is sprinkle that onto the surface of your milk, and then you're going to let it rehydrate for about 5 minutes. So I go and do my milk dishes and stuff, and then come back, and you can see here it's rehydrated. It looks like kind of an oil stain on the top, and that's when you're going to go ahead and mix it in. So once you mix it in, then you're going to add your rennet in. And so you also don't need very much rennet. You need like 1/8 of a teaspoon of rennet as well. It's super hard to measure that little tiny bit, but again, I use my little 1/4 teaspoon, and I want to mix it in with a couple tablespoons of lukewarm water. Make sure here that you're using lukewarm water, not hot water and not cold water. You don't want it to be hot because the hot water can inactivate the rennet, and you don't want it to be cold because you're counting on your milk being a little bit warm to get that culture all fired up and starting. So go ahead and mix that in with the lukewarm water, and then you're going to go ahead and add that into your jar of milk. So go ahead and mix it in nice, and then all you have to do is put the lid on it and put it on the counter. Put it in like a little bit of a warm spot, but it doesn't have to be super warm. It doesn't want to be super cold. Just like a little bit of a warm spot. I put it beside my coffee pot because that keeps it a little bit warm. And then you're gonna leave it for 24 hours. So after 24 hours, it will be nice and coagulated. you're going to go ahead and dump off a little bit of the whey. So when you open it up, there's going to be a little bit of whey sitting on the surface. Just dump that little bit of whey off, and then you're going to strain it through a cloth lined strainer. I always put the cloth lined strainer over top of a pot because that gives me the easy option of being able to go ahead and make caramel whey if I want to later on and not have to dirty another dish. So I've got it over top of my Instant Pot here. Don't try and make caramel whey in the Instant Pot on the saute mode because I've tried that before and it's like the worst. You'll get like, it'll be like, you'll think it's going to explode. It's weird. So don't do that. Do it on the stove, the regular stove. But then go ahead and dump the whole jar into the strainer and let it strain for about 6 hours. And I let it strain in the refrigerator. This is just going to slow the ferment time down and make it less strong. It's a little bit tricky to get out of the jar, so just use a little spoon. Try not to manipulate it as much as you can. That's going to help you to be able to save some of the cream in there. The less you manipulate it, the better you're going to be able to save the cream. I was definitely way too rough here, and I noticed in my whey I lost quite a bit of the cream. So just making sure that you're being nice and gentle, strain it for 6 hours, and then you are ready to make your cheesecake. So once you have strained it for 6 hours, take it out of the strainer, put it in a bowl, mix it with about a teaspoon or so of salt, and then you can use it whenever you want. It's good for probably a week to a week and a half. I usually use it as fresh as I can because I want to be able to store my cheesecake longer as well. So about a week to a week and a half, but I usually use it like the day after I make it. Alright, so next we're going to make sour cream. So I make sour cream every week. It's one of our staples. I call it leave it on the counter sour cream because it's just so easy. All you have to do is skim off the heaviest cream off of your milk. Make sure it's the heaviest stuff, that there's no actual milk in there. You want it to be all cream. So making sure that it is all cream is going to give you the thickest, nicest sour cream that you can possibly get. So today I'm going to make it about a pint of it. I usually make it in quart batches, but today I was like, oh, I'm just going to make a pint. So what I'm doing, skimming off the heaviest cream, and then I'm going to culture it with my previous batch sour cream. So I'm going to use about a teaspoon of previous batch sour cream for this recipe. If you were using a quart, you could use a little less than a tablespoon. If you don't have any previous batch sour cream, which you probably wouldn't if you've never made this, you can use store-bought sour cream, but you have to make sure that on the ingredient list it says that it has live cultures in it. And I've never actually done this before, but I've heard from other people that it works. It might give you a little bit of a runnier sour cream, but it should still be good. Alternatively, when I start out my sour cream starter, I always use Mesophilic Culture. So I use that same type 2 Mesophilic Culture that I used for the Quark. I use about 1/8 of a teaspoon for it, sprinkled on the top, let it rehydrate, and then incorporate it in. So those are kind of the 3 ways that you can go ahead and culture your sour cream. Then I put the lid on, I leave it on the counter for 24 to 48 hours. And how I know that it is ready to go in the fridge is, one, when it's nice and thick, when it's as thick as like the thickest possible yogurt, that's when I know that it's ready to go into the fridge. It's actually going to thicken up once you put it in the fridge. Sometimes it's hard to kind of tell without opening the jar how thick it is. So sour cream is one of those things that it's super easy to over ferment, and if you over ferment it, then it gets a bad taste and it's no good anymore. Or, well, it's good, it's not as good as you want it to be. You want to make sure you hit that perfect ferment timeline. So if I see any bubbles in my sour cream, so after 24 hours I look at it. If it's nice and thick, then I move it to the fridge. If I see any bubbles, and you'll look and you'll see the tiniest little air bubbles in there, I move it into the fridge, because as soon as you start to see air bubbles in there, that means that it is like fermenting, and it's maybe even fermented a tiny bit too far, so you want to move it into the fridge then. So for me, the perfect ferment time is usually 24 hours. So I try my hardest to hit that 24-hour mark. So
by trying my hardest to hit that 24-hour mark, that means that I need to kind of adjust how I'm making my sour cream depending on how strong my culture is, depending on how warm my house is, how cool my house is. So if you are having a really strong tasting sour cream and it's no good, or if it's really runny after 24 hours and then after 48 hours it's like too fermented and too strong, don't give up yet. It just takes a little bit of fiddling, and season by season, if your house is cold, if your starter is stronger this day, it's going to just take some time to just play with it and figure out exactly how, what kind of ferment time you actually want.
Day 2 is the day that you get to make the cheesecake. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so you can make this entire cheesecake in one blender. Like from butter to putting it in the pan, you can make it all in one blender. And I don't even wash the blender because I'm figuring like it's all gonna be mixed up in the cake anyways. You can wash the blender between like each little stage if you want to, but you don't actually have to. So first things first is you're gonna make your butter. So I'm gonna show you in this little video how to make butter, and then we're gonna come back.
All right, so butter is so easy, and there's so many different ways you can make it. You can make it in a jar, you can make it with a churn, you can make it in a blender or a food processor or a mix master. I make my butter in the blender just because it's super easy that way. So you put your cream nice heavy, again the heaviest, thickest cream that you have, put that in the blender. I mix it on like low speed. If I let it warm up to like room temperature before I mix it, it only takes like a minute. This depends on lactation stage and cow and all sorts of things that are just too long to get into without having a very specific video just about butter churning. But most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, if you let your butter, your cream warm up to room temperature, it will churn way faster. So you put it on medium-low, it will eventually turn to whipped cream, and then it will eventually break into butter granules, as you can see here. So once it breaks into butter granules, I go ahead and pour off the buttermilk. If I'm doing it in the blender, I actually pour off the buttermilk, then give it another little spin in the blender, pour off more buttermilk, do that again until I'm not really getting much buttermilk anymore. You want to be careful with this though that you don't actually make it into like whipped butter. So just being very diligent to just be like, press the low and then stop it, press the low and then stop it. And then you want to go ahead and put it into a bowl, and you want to press out as much of that buttermilk as you can with your little wooden spoon here. So I press out as much as you can, and then go ahead and run it under nice cold water. And this is called washing the butter. It's kind of an optional step in my opinion, because we usually eat butter quick enough that that buttermilk that's stuck in there isn't going to give it an off taste because we're eating just so quickly. But if you want your butter to last longer, make sure that you're washing it. So what you do is you run it under cold water, and then you press out more of that buttermilk until that water is actually running clear, and that it's just clear water coming out, and get all of the moisture out, and then you have made butter.
Okay, so you have made your butter. Now you're going to throw your graham crackers into, and just check below because I'm going to put the recipe and all the measurements and all that kind of stuff in the bottom because it's probably too hard for you to watch here and me to put the measurements. I'll put them in here. Okay, I'll put them in here. All right, I'm going to put the measurements in here, but I'm also going to put them below where you can subscribe below. All right, anyways, let's go. So you're gonna put your graham crackers in the blender. You're gonna mix them all up so that they become crumbs. You're gonna put about 35 graham crackers into the blender. If you put 40 in there, I won't tell anyone. So put 35 graham crackers into the blender. You're gonna blend them all up until they're crumbs. And then you are going to put half a cup of butter in there. And it wants to be softened butter. If you want, and you get extra bonus points for this, is if you melt your butter, your crust is going to stick way better together. But I don't often do that because I'm already got softened butter from just making it. I don't want to deal with this butter again. I don't want to make another dish. So I just put softened butter in there, blend it all up. It will still be sticky enough if it is softened. And then you're going to put in a cup of brown sugar. So this is optional. If you don't like to eat brown sugar, you don't have to put like that in there. You can mix around with whatever you want. This is just the crust. So you can use whatever kind of sweetener you want, but I use brown sugar. So 1/3 cup of brown sugar into the crust, and then you're going to mix that all up. And then you're going to press that into a 9 by 8-inch baking dish. That's what they're called. 9 by 8-inch baking dish. If you don't have one of those, 2 pie plates. That works fine. If you don't have one of those, the springform pan. Probably 2 of them. Use whatever vessel you have. This isn't a baked cheesecake. It's a no-bake cheesecake. So you can put it in a bowl if you wanted. Just use whatever you have. Press it in there. Give it nice, good, firm pressure. You can see here I'm using a spatula. You can use your fingers, whatever you want. And then in your blender, you are going to put a cup, 1 cup, and 1/4 cup of heavy cream. So you just skim that off. It's a nice heavy stuff. And you're going to make that into whipped cream. So go ahead and make that into whipped cream. Okay, so you can make this next step of the recipe completely in the blender. You just have to be really careful that you don't accidentally whip all that cream that you just whipped into butter, because, I mean, then it's a butter cake. But yeah, it just wouldn't be the same. Don't do that. So just be careful you don't whip it all into the butter. In this video, I just wanted to feature my very nice bowl. What you doing? I just wanted to feature my very nice bowl that I have. It's antique, and I was like, it's perfect for this video, for this cheesecake video that I have tried to make for so long. So I did the next phase of the video in the bowl, and I put it in the blender because I wanted to do more dishes. So what you're going to put in this bowl is that quark that you made. You're going to put 3 8-ounce blocks of that quark in there. So that's what all recipes call for, is that those 8-ounce cream cheese blocks. So I just eyeball it. That looks about 8 ounces. That looks about 8 ounces, but you can measure it if you want. So 3 times 8 is, hard math, 24. 3 times 8 is 24. So 24 ounces of quark. Then you're going to put in a 1/4 cup of that sour cream that you made, and it's going to look so amazing.
A 1/2 cup of granulated sugar.
And 2 tablespoons of icing sugar. And then finally, you're going to put a little splash of vanilla in there. And so you're going to mix that all up, and then you're going to fold in your whipping cream very gently so you don't turn it into butter. And then you're going to throw it back all in the blender and just like whip it up really quick. So give it a little buzz in the blender just to make sure you get all those quark pieces all smooth in there. And then you're going to take that and you're going to put it on top of your crust. And your crusts were just in the freezer because that's where you should store them while you're making this. Put them in the freezer so that they can have a little bit of time to harden up. It's like not going to do anything. They're in there for like 5 minutes, but it just makes you feel better if you follow the recipe properly. That's what I tell myself anyways. So anyways, if you want to put them in the freezer, which probably the longest part of that process was finding room in the freezer, because I know all of our freezers are full of good homegrown food. Anyways, so now you're going to put that topping onto your cheesecake. You're going to cover them in plastic wrap or beeswax wrap or whatever you want, or a lid, whatever you need, plate, anything like that, and you're going to put them in the fridge. And you're going to chill them until you're ready to eat. 2 hours, 6 hours, tomorrow, whatever you want to do. And now your cheesecakes are ready to serve. We like to serve them with raspberries on top, blueberries on top. You could put cherries on top, whatever kind of fruit you've got. Or maybe you want to take that whey from your quark and make it into whey caramel. That's on the blog. And be able to make caramel cheesecake. Oh, that sounds good. Yeah, so make sure you guys have a slice of cheesecake for me. And for you, do you like cheesecake?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is cake good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How much do you like cake? Like how much?
Cake?
You like cake?
Yeah, cake.
How much do you like it? So much?
Yeah, cake.
Cake.
And baby.
And there's a baby. Yeah.
Cake.
All right, so that concludes our cheesecake video, guys. I hope this becomes one of your main desserts that you like to serve to your family, because it's so easy. And if you have a milk cow, it's so nice to be able to serve desserts that you actually have the ingredients on hand and it doesn't take too much extra. So make sure you guys subscribe to my channel. Throw me a comment below. Do you like cheesecake? Of course you do. What kind of question is that? But tell me, what's your favorite topping for cheesecake? Because I want to know, because I plan on making this cheesecake so much in the next year, like weekly. I'm going to make this cheesecake weekly. And I'm going to use all the toppings that you say in the comments. Maybe. All right. We'll see you guys next week where I post a video every Monday on Cheese from Scratch. Make sure you subscribe to my channel because, again, I post a video every Monday. And I just ordered a new camera. So this is the second to last video that you will have to watch on subpar audio because I just ordered a new camera. So it's not going to be filming off my iPhone anymore. We're going big time. All right. See you guys next week. Bye. Can you say bye?
Bye.
Bye.